Every mirror in the house told a different story, but they all agreed on one thing. Annalise was running out of time. Every mirror in the house told a different story, but they all agreed on one thing. Annalise was running out of time. Annalise Hartford inherited the sprawling Victorian mansion from her estranged aunt, a woman she barely remembered and whom her parents never spoke of. The house sat at the edge of a desolate forest, its dark turrets piercing the gray sky like claws. Despite its foreboding appearance, the property came with one peculiar rule: do not cover the mirrors. The mansion's interior was a labyrinth of dust-coated antiques and floorboards that groaned beneath her every step. But what unnerved Annalise the most were the mirrors. There were dozens of them, each uniquely ornate, hanging in nearly every room. Some had gilded frames, others were cracked and clouded, but all seemed to hum with an energy that made her skin crawl. Her first night alone, Annalise swore she heard faint whispers emanating from the mirrors. She dismissed it as her imagination, a trick of the house settling. But as the days stretched into weeks, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into fragmented sentences. She's watching. Time is slipping. Don't look too long. One evening, as Annalise stared into the massive mirror in the parlor, something flickered behind her reflection. A shadow, darker than the dimly lit room. When she turned, nothing was there. But when she glanced back at the mirror, her reflection was no longer hers. The figure staring back had her face but not her eyes. Its gaze was hollow, its lips stretched into a twisted smile. Panicked, Annalise tried to cover the mirror with a sheet, only to find it impossible. The fabric slid off as though repelled by an invisible force. Desperate for answers, she scoured her aunt's belongings and found a weathered journal. Inside were scrawled entries about a curse, a watcher in the glass, and a ritual to break free. The instructions were cryptic but clear. She would need to confront her reflection at exactly midnight during a full moon. The journal warned of the consequences of failure, an eternity trapped in the mirror, while the thing on the other side lived in her place. As the night of the full moon arrived, Annalise lit candles around the parlor and stood before the grand mirror, her heart pounding. The reflection began to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. Her doppelganger stepped forward, grinning wickedly, and whispered in a voice that wasn't hers, "I've waited so long for this." Annalise reached for the ritual dagger her aunt had left behind, but the air grew thick and her limbs felt like lead. The doppelganger's hand reached through the glass, cold as death, and gripped her wrist. The last thing Annalise saw was her own terrified face as she was pulled into the glass. The next morning, the house was silent. The mirrors reflected an empty mansion, save for one. The parlor mirror now showed Annalise, her hands pressed against the glass, her mouth open in a silent scream. Her reflection turned and walked away,